Hello guys, Vijay here again. So today we'll be reading back to 60s, Farm, Get Wealthy and Raise the Cubs. This is a Chinese novel. The authors are Southern Lichi and Nanfang Lichi, and there are a total of 701 chapters of it. This novel is based in China in 1960s, as it explained told in the title, and it was at the time when in China reform was going, as I have read in the many novels. I did not know even that. I even did not know like it was like something that happened in China until I read all of these novels, and sometimes I get that what if what is written in these novels exactly even happen or exactly happened at the time, and someone got the profit, someone got famous or rich or lucky because of these. I mean, how much they have suffered in their previous lives, and now they are reaping that profit, or whose life is living whom, or is it a novel or is it a real life. So like yeah, after reading these type of novels I get these questions. Okay, so let's discuss this later, like when more people I have to discuss with, right? So let's start with the description first. Like, what is the description of this story is about a linking here. Okay, so start. Lincoln Hay transmigrated into a novel and become one of its canon foders. The novel's background is non-viable 1960s, a time of want to eat but nothing to eat, and want to wear but nothing to wear. Although there is a lack of supplies and life was monotonous, this wasn't what she was concerned about, because she got a small personal interspatial space which was stuffed with supplies. So temporarily there was nothing, there was no worries about her basic needs, because what she's worried about is that if she remembers correctly, her three so-called sons will become big villains in the future, and their upright and cold dad will end up with an undeniable end. When Kinge looked at the three future villain sons, the eldest son, who was only 5 years old, the second child was only 3 years old, and the third child was only 1 year old, decided to give them half of a big white bun first. Okay, so let's start the reading. We'll read two chapters first, and then we'll read next two or three chapters in next video. Let's start with the first chapter, Personal Interspatial Space, Part 1. Mother, I'm so hungry. In the single apartment, Lin Kincaid opened her eyes on her bed and was in daze. After a while, she sighed frankly. She grabbed the phone at the bedside and checked the time. It was only 5:30 in the morning. It was May in the lunar calendar. The sky outside was already bright at this time. Lin Kincaid put down her phone silently, and then a magical scene happened. Out of nowhere, a glass of water in her hands. Lin Kincaid observed this cup of hot water, which was still steaming. It was just like when she put it in last night. Taking in the phenomenon within her eyes, Lin Kincaid no longer hesitated. She got up to wash up. She was just an ordinary office worker and did it pretty well. She is currently the sales department manager. Although she was ordinary, what happened to her recently was not ordinary. As she brushed her teeth and saw her dark circles in the mirror, Lin Kinghei shook her head again and sighed. Although her heart was in a mess, she did not forget to put on her makeup. No one would believe her if she talked about it. For 3 consecutive nights, the dream she had contained a child who grabbed her, called her mother, and asked for something to eat. The dream felt so real it nearly scared her witless. At first, she thought because she was too tired, as she had recently worked overtime, so she didn't care. But the second night, she had the exact same dream. Along with this dream, an interspatial space of about 10 square meters appeared in her body. It was about the same size as a single apartment. This scared her, but probably because she had the habit of reading novels, her ability to accept was relatively strong. Of course, this is also related to her strong tenacity. In short, she accepted quickly. Interspatial space on her body is in the palm of her hand. With just a thought, she can see it. The space was like a big storage box. Last night, she put a cup of hot water into it, and as an experiment, it was exactly the same when she took it out in the morning. The temperature didn't change at all. This is enough to prove that the space was unchanging. The condition it was in when placed inside is the condition when it will be taken out. And just now, the child was in her dream again, calling her mother and saying he was hungry. And then she was awakened. But this time, she finally didn't hesitate anymore. The strong uneasiness in her heart made her have an intuition that something strange would happen, so she had to make some preparations. Because she saw in the dream that the place was extremely poor, she wondered whether if it was in the apocalyptic years. The supplies and food were very scarce. The faces she saw were very vague, but without exception. Their bodies were all skinny and faces were sickly yellow. Although her childhood days weren't easy, but compared to the environment seen in the dream, her life growing up under the five-star red flag in the early days of reform, food and clothing was not a problem. It is impossible to imagine that kind of living environment. Her novel was not written in vain, and now she had an additional interspatial space on her. She believes that if she didn't do anything else, then maybe by chance transmigrated to apocalyptic era, she will starve to death. Soon Linking finished washing and sorting herself. She took out a pen and paper and began to count the supplies to be purchased. The basic seven: firewood, rice, oil, salt, soy, vinegar, tea had to be prepared with the exception of firewood and tea. Among them, rice and oil are the top priority. Then Kenke replaced the firewood and tea with brown sugar and rock sugar. White sugar isn't necessary. Rock sugar was enough to replace it. Eggs were also added to the notebook. In the dream place, something like eggs is definitely an asset currency. In addition to eggs, there was meat, no matter what kind of meat. She had to get some anyway. And also medicines for emergency colds, fevers, bloating, and diarrhea are also necessary. And needed to buy some oil, menthol balm for all kinds of aches. One box of these things was sufficient and will not occupy much space. After writing this, Lin King felt the food supplies were almost enough. Then she started to write the rest. She didn't know if it was cold there or not, but warm quilts have to be prepared. The mattresses had to be prepared as well. All of it needed to be grey and not colorful because she saw in the dream that the place is grey and white. There was no color at all. Thinking of this, she blew out some heavy exhales despite her optimistic nature. Afterward, materials began to be added again. There were some personal items of her own. Although the materials were important, she also wanted to leave some private space for herself to buy some female personal items, which were also equally important to her. Few pages are written full of materials. She looked back and forth several times to make sure she didn't have anything left out, and then sighed in relief. Then she started counting her savings. After checking a few times, her saving was only 50,000 yuan. For her, who had been working as a department manager for a few years after graduation, this deposit is naturally small. But there was no other way, as her expenses weren't small on most days. Cosmetics are a necessity. Every so often, she goes on shopping or eats out with her friends, which one didn't cost money. From the current her, one can't find the shadow of the past. She was an orphan girl abandoned by her parents. She grew up with her grandmother in a rural area from a young age. When she was sophomore, her grandmother passed away. From then on, she had fed herself until she graduated from college to find a job. Although life wasn't easy, she still persisted. Now she was living very well. Originally, she wanted to save a down payment, and now, when the time comes for her to get a house herself, so that she got her to save some expenses and try to be part of the Moonlight Group. She still had more than 2000 yuan of the loose money on her, plus 50,000 in her card. It's a total of more than 50,000 yuan. Straight out, she rented a minibus online. It was a driver's license she got from the time she studied in college and work. At that time, she wanted to make some money as a chauffeur. Later, she disliked the fact that it was little money and lots of struggle, so she dropped it. It was a young man who rented the minibus because he wanted to go back to his hometown for a few days, so he planned to rent it out. He originally thought of just giving it a go, but didn't expect someone would really rent it. After Lin King contacted him and heard that urgently needed it, he drove it over. It was not too far away and arrived downstairs in about 10 minutes. Lin King paid the deposit alone online, so there is no need to pay anymore. After trying to drive it, it was very smooth, even if she hadn't driven for a long time. Although the minibus was a bit old, there was one row of seat behind the front seat, and the last row was dismantled to become minibus that could carry goods. Linkage was very satisfied. Sending off the vehicle's young owner, who tried to strike a conversation with her, she carried her bag and hit the road. She hadn't had breakfast yet, so better eat breakfast before you start fighting. The breakfast shop was a 10-minute drive from apartment where she lives. The journey was short. And Kinge was aware she's a foodie, but she can't come here often because the location wasn't on the way to work. Next chapter is finished. Let's start with second chapter. Second chapter name is Personal Interspatial Space Part 2. Sure enough, other businesses are yet to open, but the breakfast shop has here opened at 6:15 a.m. There were already street cleaners buying ones from here and ate while leaving. Auntie, give me one and a cup of soy milk, the 3 yuan worth one. Lin Kingi said. The aunt of the breakfast shop answered and soon brought it to her. The hot steamed one with a cup of soy milk. Lin Kingi came by the store by chance half a year ago and came in for a breakfast one and found this store. The aunt in this store is local. Her family got 3 buildings for rental. According to the current house price, like her single apartment will cost 1,000 a month without including the utility bills. Cheap ones cost 6 to 700 a month, and the 3 buildings are collecting rent. What does that mean? Even if family does nothing, there is no need to worry about food and clothing. But aunt's family couldn't sit still. The couple opened the breakfast shop with their eldest son and daughter-in-law, and the business was extremely prosperous. No, not only was it clean and hygienic, but it was also particularly good, like the bun Lin King was eating. Just one is enough for her to be full, as she got a small stomach. A bun costs 3 yuan, but it contains meat, eggs, and cabbage. It tastes very delicious and had plenty of ingredients. And this bun is why she drove all the way here. When Lin King still haven't figured it out, she was skeptical. Would transmigrated with an interspatial space really happen to her? After hesitating for 2 days, she thought it through today, the 30th. This decision made her feel a sense of emergency. She was afraid that she would transmigrate to the poor place before she was ready. That would mean call heaven got no answer, call earth got no inspiration. That means nowhere to turn for help. And she didn't know if there was any place for cooking. This big and delicious one was really suitable. Auntie, how many buns are there? You are very skilled. It's so fragrant. I want to buy it for my colleagues. Lin Kinge wiped her mouth with paper and told the aunt. Aunt laughed. There is still more, but if you buy more, I can make it cheap for you. Our profit is not big, but the business is really good. There are a lot of buns made in general stores. Because before there were construction sites making a large order, but it was the same, no discounts on the price. That's because no matter how much was bought, the store's bun can all be sold out. There is no shortage of big clients like Lin King. Auntie, how much you have? Pack it all for me. I drove over here so I can put it in the back seat. Blinking his head. But you really have to give me a cheaper price, huh? This trip of mine saved your family a lot of effort. Auntie saw that she wasn't joking, said, Then I'll see how much there is. She went to take a look and soon came out. I've made a lot today. There are 300. How much do you want? There are only 300. Lin King couldn't help but ask. Little girl is not big in age, but your tone is not small. 300 isn't little. At most, 3 of our buns are enough to make a big fellow full, Aunt said. There are many people in our workspace unit, and they are all big men. Their appetite can't be compared to us, and it tastes so good. One person will have at least 2 or 3. 300 are not enough to share, King said with a smile. Are there that many people in your unit? Aunt rose and looked at her suspiciously. Even if one person can get 300 are enough for 100 men. King laughed. Just our unit doesn't need so many. Isn't there a unit next door? If they like to eat them, you may have to work hard and do overtime today. Been working overtime for a while, so the workplace orders snacks. What kind of workplace are you in? To need a big girl to come out to handle this. The aunt saw that she wasn't fooling her, so she took out a foam box and spoke. It's a bit like foam box that contains popsicle when you were a kid. How about using this? said the aunt. Because the construction sites order bun, the store had these big boxes, especially reserved for packing buns. Okay, saw it, looked very clean, and nodded. Replied to her last question. This wasn't appointed for me to do. My sister-in-law is responsible for the few units meals, but she has a cold. I have no choice but to help her out. Auntie, your bun is so good. A lot of filling and cane. This is famous in the area. Everyone will definitely like it, and my sister-in-law can also rasp. Although these words are full of loopholes, and in the rendering of linking is colorful rubbish, the aunt didn't care about it that much. First, packed up three foam boxes for her because some had not been steamed yet. So the aunt asked Linginge to wait for her. Linginge said that she'll take the three foam boxes first and told the aunt to continue steaming for her. She will take the already steamed ones in the foam box to her workplace and first and will return soon. Although there were some loopholes in Linkinge's remarks, it was true she got matters to handle. The payment was cleared in one go, so the aunt didn't adopt anything. Under Linkinge's bargaining, the aunt reduced the price by 20 yuan. Although it is only 20 yuan, Linkinge doesn't mind the saving at all. She can't wait to divide 1 cent into 2 times. 20 yuan is enough for her to be refueled. After leaving the breakfast shop, Linkinge parked the car in a quiet, deserted place and decided to put three foam boxes into the space. Then she headed straight to the nearby market. She came to buy eggs. She usually cooks herself and treats herself, so she came to this market to shop. As soon as Lincoln arrived there, she brought up free range eggs from a local aunt. It was because they are familiar. She also knows the old aunt's eggs are the freshest and basically none are broken. Speaking of about, there are also free range eggs sold in the supermarkets, but those eggs are also cheaper. But they have to be picked carefully, otherwise, it is easy to buy bad ones. Also, the eggs of this old aunt are a bit expensive. Linkinge doesn't mind buying from her. And this transaction, old aunt also gave her a little discount. It was the old aunt's son who carried them over to the market for her to be sold. Linkinge came over at that time. The old aunt's son hadn't left yet because he will help the morning rush. Otherwise, the old aunt can handle on her own. So Linkinge asked the young man to load her basket eggs into the vehicles. The two baskets of eggs got loaded in, and Linkinge immediately settled the money, including of two baskets and the carrying pole, then sent him away. Knowing that the other party would be confused, Linkinge ignored it anyway. She gave him enough money. So these were the two chapters. The next chapters will be in the next video. Stay tuned.